Now, ever since I was a wee little lad, I've been learning languages, because I never quite figured out how to interact with other children. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how I've been learning languages all these years, how you essentially don't need to study in the traditional sense to make a lot of progress, and provide some tips to all of you to take your language learning to the next level. It can largely be a stress-free and fun process. I'm a huge proponent of it, and I think it's the most important thing ever. And in all that time, I'm sure you can imagine that I've tried every single language learning resource under the sun. Some were too expensive, some weren't as effective as others, and some just flat out didn't work for me. But there has only been one that I've come back to on a regular basis after all these years. It was co-founded by everybody's favorite senior, Mr. Big Steve Kaufman, and it's called LingQ. Now, there's a basic principle behind this service that I believe to be as important as the invention of the wheel in language learning, and that is comprehensible input. And this is how we circumvent the need to study. All you really need to do is listen and read in your target language. Now, let's unpack that a little bit. Now, when you're consuming something in a foreign language, i.e. your target language, you're going to want to shoot for 80 to 90% comprehension. That is absolutely ideal. If it's much lower than that, it's way too difficult and not worth your time. If it's much higher than that, then it may be too boring and easy for you if you want to keep going and progress at a normal rate. And interestingly, this is the exact way that children learn languages, so why should it be any different for the rest of us? Parents naturally know how to speak to their children in a simple, effective way, yet still throw in some unknown words here and there so that the child learns in context, and it's the exact same idea here. But comprehension isn't the only thing that matters. You also need to enjoy what you're listening to. So you need to read and listen in your target language about topics that you enjoy. In a perfect world, you read and listen at the same time so that your brain connects the sounds and meaning to the written script in the language. It's just a lot more efficient that way. So let's go in and take a look. And this is why LingQ is super powerful, because they have thousands of hours of content that you can search for right here. And if somehow they don't have what you're looking for, then you can import pretty much anything from other platforms such as YouTube, Netflix, etc. into LingQ for your viewing pleasure. And speaking of Netflix, I mean, look at this new UI. I mean, it looks pretty good, right? It kind of looks like Netflix, but for language learning. It really looks great. There's also all this talk about consistency in language learning. And while consistency is super important, if you enjoy what you're reading and listening to, then you generally don't need to worry about it too much. Back when I was in high school, I would very enthusiastically get home and clock overtime hours into listening to foreign languages because it's just what I loved to do. And that's why I progressed relatively quickly, because I was putting way more time into it than the average person. Back then, it wasn't uncommon for me to spend 8-10 hours a day learning languages. And I guarantee you that if I didn't enjoy it as much as I did in the past, then I would not be sitting here making this video right now. So yes, consistency is important, but in my opinion, it's even more important to find a way to enjoy the process so that you don't need to worry about staying consistent in the first place. Next, you gotta know what you know and what you don't know, right? So it's super helpful to have all that information in one place. So right over here, you can actually see how many words you've marked off as known and look through the words themselves in an SRS system. You can see here that I've studied the most Russian on LingQ. I have over 28,000 known words. I have German, 6,000, 13,000, French, Spanish, 4,000, Portuguese, 5,000, Chinese, like 1,600, Dutch, 3,000, and then I've like dabbled in a bunch of different languages. That's also the cool thing about this, is that you can access all of these languages. It's also worth noting that this isn't all the words I know in every single language, just all the words on LingQ that I've marked as known. I've put hundreds, if not thousands of hours in other places besides LingQ, but I still have spent like literal years on this site. So if you're unfamiliar with the term SRS, it stands for Spaced Repetition System. And it's essentially designed to show you words and phrases that you want to learn right before you're about to forget them so that they enter your long-term memory more easily. While this is incredibly efficient, I personally never found it to be the most exciting way of learning new words, but it's nice to know that LingQ gives you that option if you do enjoy learning that way. But with the way that LingQ is set up, you don't need to do that at all if you don't want to, and that's the really cool part. LingQ also keeps really detailed statistics about your studies that are really interesting to look at. They even have graphs showing your progress in all the languages that you studied, which I think is super cool. So let me take you through a lesson in Spanish so that you can see what the core of this thing looks like. You can also adjust the difficulty up here if what you picked was either too hard or too difficult. So now we're here in a lesson. This is actually a TED Talk, which is really interesting. I love watching them in English, so why not know their languages? All the words in blue are words that I have never encountered before on Link. And the words in yellow are words that I have seen before and saved as links, but words that I haven't marked off as known or learned yet. So I'm gonna start it, and since it's a YouTube video, they actually give you the video to watch while you go along with the transcript, which is really cool as well. Or you can just stick to the audio version.
Estoy seguro de que todos sospecháis ya y sabéis con certeza incluso de qué personaje o de qué persona voy a hablar, ¿no? Aquí lo veis y efectivamente tenéis razón, voy a hablar.
Alright, so I think you get the point. And then we would go through the entire thing, click on words we don't know, like if we don't know what sabes means, then we would click on it. You can actually hear them say it right here.
Sabéis. Sabéis.
And then right here we have the translations. So if I wanted to save it, all I would have to do is click on one of the translations, and bam, now this will show up in all other lessons where this word comes up. So I'm gonna encounter it naturally as I keep studying Spanish. And since I already know what certeza means,
Certeza.
I'm gonna click on it, and all the way down here, I'm gonna click this check mark, which means that I know it, and you'll see that it'll turn white, like all the other words that I've encountered and marked off as known.
Cronista.
Cronista. So then you just go through, pick all the words you don't know, and move on to the next lesson. And that's the main crux of it. As you do more and more lessons, you're going to run into unknown words multiple times and learn them naturally through context, which, let me tell you, is a lot better than staring at flashcards all damn day, in my opinion. Oh yeah, I can also highlight and save entire sentences if I wanted to, like this, and it'll give me the translation for the entire thing, which again, I think is super cool. And the translations are always really accurate, even with things like phrases and idioms that are hard to translate because they come from the community. Now, when I'm listening to stuff in a foreign language, I like to do what's called shadowing, which is essentially imitating the native speaker's accent so that I can improve my own. So I listen to a sentence once.
Uno, hola, ¿cómo estás?
And then I try to pronounce it. Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Uno, hola, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, ¿cómo estás? And then rinse and repeat until I'm done with the lesson. You don't have to do this every single time, but it's a really great way to get the accent down and building confidence in your pronunciation if you're worried about that. Basically, over time, you're not going to learn the language, but rather acquire it in a very natural and pleasurable way, much like how you learned your native language. All the while seeing just how far you've progressed and where you want to go with detailed statistics and graphs. And it's also worth mentioning that they have a mobile app that you can use that's quite similar to the desktop version. That's really useful if you're on the go. So if you made it this far in the video, go and check out link in the description below. There's a 35% discount down there just for you guys if you want to check it out. I hope this video provided some good insight into the language learning process, how I go about it, and I hope you took something actionable away from it. Thanks for watching, guys. Check out link, and I'll see you next time. Peace.